This is Bharat FM.
बजेगा भारत, झूमेगा भारत. बजेगा भारत, झूमेगा भारत.
This is Bharat FM.
Welcome to this special live segment of Suhani Subah. I'm Mayank Chaya. Breathwork is one of the many derivative interpretations of the millennia-old Indian yogic technique of Pranayam. Although its idea has been around for a long time, it has found particular resonance in recent years within the Western wellness world. Transformational breathing coach and yoga teacher Aimee Hartley is a well-known practitioner of that technique based in London and author of a book called Breathing Well Aimee has been teaching breathing techniques for the last 10 years. At a time when the world is in the grip of a seriously stress-inducing pandemic and when wearing masks has become mandatory, breathing has become a particular challenge as well as a solution. In her book, Breathe Well, published this February, Aimee writes that we breathe 17,000 times a day, and if you live up to 85, that number would be 520 million breaths. As she says, and I quote her, breathing is your very first and will be your very last experience. Breathing well, as you know, is everything. So let's talk some bare or air necessities, a catchword from Aimee's website, thebreathingroom.co.uk. She has cautioned me that one of her two children may unexpectedly make a cameo during this live interaction. Well, we are counting on it. Welcome to Bharat FM, Aimee. Aimee? I think we seem to have some issue. Just a moment, I'm sorting it out. I don't know if you... Hi, I think it dropped. Did you manage to hear my introduction?
I didn't, but it's okay. It's fine.
Repeat that. Let me nevertheless do it. I'm sorry about that. I think there is some glitch here.
Okay.
As I was saying, breathwork is one of the many derivative interpretations of the millennia-old Indian yogic technique of pranayam. Although its idea has been around for a long time, it has found particular resonance in recent years within the Western wellness world. Transformational breathing coach and yoga teacher Aimee Hartley is a well-known practitioner of that technique based in London and author of a book called Breathe Well. Aimee has been teaching breathing techniques for the last 10 years at a time when the world is in the grip of a stress-inducing pandemic and when wearing masks has become mandatory. Breathing has become a particular challenge as well as a solution. In her book, Breathe Well, published this February, Aimee writes that we breathe 17,000 times a day, and if you live up to 85, that number is a staggering 520 million breaths. As she said, breathing is your very first and will be your last experience. Breathing well, as we all know, is everything. So let's talk some air necessities, a catchword from her website, thebreathingroom.co.uk. She has cautioned me that it's possible that one of her two children might crash into the frame. And let me tell her, I'm counting on it, that it happens. We need some viral moments. Welcome to Bharat FM, Aimee. Thank you for your time.
You're welcome. Lovely to meet you.
Likewise. Let's describe breathwork, something that you've been practicing for a long time.
Yeah, well, I was first introduced to it, I guess, the breath work side of it, just after, ironically, after a yoga 3-year course that I was doing. So obviously within the yoga course, I did 2 years in England, then I researched lots of other courses around the world, and there's lots of these kind of go to India, train for 3 weeks and become a yoga teacher type courses out there. And I really I knew there was so much to learn and sort of endless learning around it, because it goes back sort of, from the millennia, that I researched an amazing course that was a full-time course in Australia, led by lots of leading teachers some great, actually, Indian, Australian pranayama teachers. And there was always something for me in the pranayama part of this yoga course that was really fascinating and made me feel a lot more relaxed than the sort of moving side, the vinyasa side that's become so popular in the West.
Right.
So I then really threw myself into there's a course out there called The Art of Living, and I dabbled in that for a bit. There was Kundalini yoga, which I loved. So all these breath-focused courses sort of seemed to come my way, and I indulged in them and loved them. And then when I completed that course, we had to practice kind of pranayama every morning and every evening, and it was just lovely. But it wasn't until I came back to England and came across a breath coach actually called Alan Dolan, and breath coaches were quite new. This was like 15 years ago now, and they were quite new to the, well, really new to the scene. There was only about 10 of them, I think, in England at that time. And he looked at my breathing pattern and he was just like, you're not breathing well at all. You're sort of into your upper chest, you're not breathing into your belly. And my yoga teacher mind was sort of saying, well, I must be, because I've done 3 years of training, 5 years of practice. There's no way I can't be breathing well. And then he gave me this one-to-one session, offered me the acupressure, that transformational breath is involved, some movement. So all these little intricacies that helped release tension in my lower respiratory muscles. So the abdominal muscles, hip muscles, the upper chest, the intercostal muscles, shoulder muscles, all these little places in the respiratory system where we hold onto tension. And he really looked, he really showed me.
There we have a viral moment.
Maybe.
Hello.
Let's just take it off.
Lovely to meet you.
It's Dave. I'm just gonna. She's got a little bit of a wet t-shirt. She's the best breather in the house. Okay, Bubs. The belly breather.
Yeah.
Anyway, he told me that he then showed me how I should be breathing well from the lower belly, engaging an abdominal breath, and just opened my eyes really to breath work and how I should be breathing, which I found astounding after so many years of yoga teacher training. So we actually, funny she's here actually, because we should actually look at a toddler breath, big rounded belly. This is like a prime example of a good belly breather. Yeah. Perfect. She's the best teacher. She should actually be talking, because she, we should look at.
I'm glad she gave me a wonderful segue, because I believe until we are 3, babies are the best breathers, as it were. Why is it that?
Well, I actually use the image actually of a toddler, because I always find with I'll meet you downstairs, darling. With a baby breath, even in the first stages, first couple of weeks and months of being, a human, as it were, we are learning to feed, we're learning to sleep, and I found actually with my second born that there was almost this learning of breathing as well, of how to breathe, and I think a lot of us take our breath patterns from our mothers, and and I think basically when you get to a toddler, you've obviously learned to breathe well, and you express everything. So when you're happy, you say you're happy. When you're sad, you say you're sad. So there's no holding back, and this breath is very, very full and very, very free. And if you watch a sleeping toddler, or if you watch a awake toddler, you will see this lovely rounding belly of the breath, rounding of the belly as they breathe in. And it's and then we start unlearning how to breathe. So we can, I think actually when we get to school, when we are sitting down for long periods of time, our posture slowly changes. So when we're even sitting on a chair for sort of 6 hours a day, that often a lot of school children are doing in the West anyway, we sort of crunch the diaphragm, our shoulders round forwards, and we're sort of writing, or now in the West there's lots of schooling on laptops and things, so we're sort of chin to chest, and all of these movements compromise the respiratory system. unlike the free movement of a toddler behind me that just kind of does what they do. And I don't know if it's going to, I don't know if it's going to interrupt your audio.
We have to live with it. This is all about being zen about it.
This is the lockdown world we live in.
Yeah. Tell me, to digress a bit, there is a mention of Judith Kravitz in the 1970s.
Yeah.
What is that about? That was the method pioneered by her, or breathwork?
Sorry?
Was that the method that she pioneered, breathwork?
Yes, yeah. She created transformational breath. She studied with Leonard Orr, and there was a few other big breath workers around at the time. And then she also studied body work and acupressure, and she studied movement as well. So she studied a lot of body sort of somatic therapies and sort of combined them. So it's a combination therapy, really. So transformational breath is unique in the fact that it does look at our unique breathing patterns, and we look at individual breath patterns. So I actually trained with Judith. She's based in America. She's based in upstate New York, I think now. But I came over and studied with her at the time. And it's a fascinating combination of looking at individual breath patterns, helping people either expand their belly. So a lot of people are either upper chest breathers and they need to get into their belly more, or people are lower belly breathers and need to get into their upper chest more. So we all breathe in a completely unique way, which is very, very fascinating. And transformational breath is unique in the fact that, it looks at helping people expand their respiratory system, or just release tension in the respiratory system that is no longer needed.
Right. How does breath work differ and converge with pranayama?
Well, it's pranayama is more breath control, and breath work, or this particular breath work, is more about really letting go, so releasing tension in the respiratory system, and really working on a 1 minute. Really working, just sit there, sit there. Really working on 1 minute. I'm just gonna.
Sure.
One sec.
No, that's okay. As you might have noticed, there's a bit of child attention seeking going on right now, and I'm sure Aimee will be back. The part of the reason why I wanted to bring her on today is a great deal is being talked about in the Western world about breath work. And we are in the midst of a pandemic. Like I said, wearing masks has become some sort of an obstruction when it comes to breathing well. And I think it's important, if masks are going to be a feature of our lives, I think we should ensure that we breathe well and breathe with some measure of scientific advice on that. And I think we don't seem to realize that, like I pointed out early on, and as Aimee also writes, that breathing is something that you begin your life with and end your life with. So everything that happens in between these two exercises. So I think it's important that we remember this particular aspect. I'm still waiting for Aimee to get back. I think she is having to attend to her somewhat mischievous baby. I'm sure she'll be back. But I have this morning read up quite a bit about breath work. Like she said, it's about individual patterns.
I'm so sorry about that.
She's back. Thank you, Aimee.
That's okay.
No,
Fingers crossed again.
I'm glad you're back. I was, as we were talking, the conversions and difference between pranayam and breath work.
Yeah, so with the particular breath work I'm trained in looks at how we breathe. So I did notice actually after my breathwork training that so many people in my yoga classes weren't breathing at all, weren't breathing well anyway. And when they were doing pranayamas, some people that were upper chest breathers. So when they're breathing in, it's kind of a, shoulders rising, ribs rising affair. But they perhaps weren't getting all the benefits that pranayama can offer. So if we're a nice deep belly breather, and then we're doing pranayama, the body reaps all the benefits that pranayama can bring. So I think over time in this, maybe especially in the West, but I think everywhere now, our breath patterns have changed so much that we've kind of just forgotten how to breathe in a healthy way, in a natural way. So for all the benefits yoga pranayama can bring, I think they only bring the true benefits if we're breathing well. So I always feel like breath work should be the foundation of everything really, but just the foundation of yoga, the foundation of pranayama. So we should really look at kind of how we're breathing before we, embark on lots of different breath works or lots of different pranayamas.
Tell me, the fact that breathing is an involuntary action, how do people consciously control it? Because it becomes a chore then if you're constantly focused on breathing well as a voluntary action, as it were. How do you manage that? Because people just breathe, right? It's not something that you consciously try.
No, I mean, we can change that though, because it's obviously subconscious. We breathe 20,000 times a day. Most of those go unnoticed. But if we catch ourselves breath holding or maybe taking shallow breaths, and we've learned how to then breathe deeply, in those moments, which if we are breath holding or if we are finding ourselves short of breath, we can then bring our consciousness or consciously breathe or breathe with awareness deeply into our diaphragm. We can go from this fight or flight state, so this sympathetic nervous state, and we can breathe 10 deep diaphragmatic breaths and then land in this lovely sort of parasympathetic rest and digest state. So that's the value really of breath awareness.
Is it your sense that with the onset of the pandemic and the fact that we all wear masks now, people have, in your teaching, they become conscious about how to get around having a mask all the time and still breathe well?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are noticing that a lot of people are mouth breathers. So I have got quite a few people say, since they've been wearing the masks, that they have noticed that they're breathing in through their mouths more or their nose more. And I think as the mask obviously covers here, it does bring us to this part of the respiratory system. And mouth breathing on a breath by breath basis is very unhealthy for us. We should always breathe in through the nose, out through the nose, or breathe in through the nose or out through the mouth. So this, I think, sometimes if you are a mouth breather, I think the mask wearing can be more of a challenge, definitely. So it'd just be good to take stock of when you are out and about in this mask situation. Obviously, make sure the natural material is going to be more breathable than any other affair. So try and find sort of breathable materials, and just always make sure that you're breathing through the nose over the mouth.
Do you apprehend that this extended mask wearing might change the pattern of our breathing on a slightly permanent basis? Oh,
that's a really good question. I hope not. I hope that people are only popping out for essential purposes anyway, and they're not having to wear them at home or when they're walking, in nature, or I'm hoping that it's only used for those times where we have to do essential things. And it's interesting because I think this pandemic has made us really question what's really important. Like, I don't know about where you are, but the lack of traffic that was on the roads here during the lockdown was lovely, like heavenly. And there, I'm out of London now. I'm not actually I've moved out of London just before the pandemic, actually, thankfully. But the lack of traffic just really brought it home to me. Obviously, people weren't going to work, but they were also not making these unnecessary trips to kind of like a shop half a mile down the road, which in London, I'm not sure if it's the same in New York or where else this program goes out to, I think there's a crazy statistic in London that most journeys, there's like 80% of car journeys are made for trips less than a mile. And you think, wow, you know, so that's quite shocking, but it's just, yeah, maybe if you are wearing a mask, then only do it for those, you know, essential trips where you are in contact with other people.
Right. A somewhat broader question. Have you, since you've been interacting with the Indian systems for a while, health systems, have you wondered why is it that Indian philosophy zeroed in on the idea of breathing such a long time ago? What is it that you think might have triggered this deep interest in breathing as a device of well-being?
I think well, I know it works. It works so well. And I think people see instant results. It's not like you have to go to the gym and, you know, for months and months before you see a muscle appear. It's people come to a breathwork session and feel amazing after it. Or they have, you know, back in the day when you could have workshops, they would come to workshop environment, workshop situation, or now it's Zoom sessions online. So there's this immediate feeling that you get after you've done even half an hour sometimes of breath work. And I think that appeals, especially in this sort of fast culture where we kind of want everything now. And, you know, I think the culture has changed where everything's fast moving. So I think that, yeah, I think that's one of the reasons. It's very immediate. And people are having very, very profound experiences with breath work as well. It's not just about physically getting fitter or, you know, calming ourselves down. We can actually access the subconscious as well through certain breath works too. So because the breath is both subconscious and conscious, if we bring our conscious awareness to something that is subconscious, we then access this subconscious side of ourselves, which I think also people just find fascinating, that they can go to these different realms and, you know, find it, yeah, just have amazing experiences. And everyone's experience is so different as well. I think that, you know, when it's word of mouth, people say they have an amazing experience, and then someone else will go and say it was amazing, but for totally different reasons. So I think this is also appeals to our, yeah, forever hungry minds for new experiences as well.
Right. Describe to me the trigger for your book. What prompted you to write Breathe Well?
Well, there's a lot of breathing books out there, but I'm a busy mum of two, and I've been doing this work for 10 years, and I felt that the big deep work that we do is invaluable, but also I was finding myself actually breath work peppered throughout your day can really help you have a much nicer day. And you can weave, and again, people having lack of time. At the time I was in London, I was seeing lots of you know, stressed out CEOs, people very, very short on time. And I thought, well, actually, you don't have to roll out a yoga mat, or you don't have to go to a workshop. You can do breath work sat at your desk. You can do breath work walking to work, before a meeting, whilst traveling. There's all these moments where we can really weave in some lovely breath works to help us bring our mind back to the present moment, to maybe calm us down before a public talk. And I just thought I'd just make it very, very accessible as well, because breathwork was on the rise in popularity, but I wanted it to be for people, for beginners really, for people that were kind of had heard about it, interested about it, but didn't quite know what it was, and for there to be lots of exercises in there for sleep as well. So lots of people have trouble sleeping. So it's broken up into how we spend our lives in breath. So we spend more breath for sleep. So the sleep chapter is quite big, and we spend less time sort of on little trips and on holidays. So the sojourn chapter is, you know, there's 4 or 5 exercises for flying and traveling. Relationships, there's breath exercises in there. So it's really sort of a handy breath guide, I guess, for beginners to start their breathwork journey. And then if they found it interesting or piqued their interest, then to delve into deeper things.
Mm-hmm. Would you care to give us a tip or two about when people breathe from the belly, diaphragmatic, and through the chest as if ribs going up and down? How does one control without making a project out of it, that you try and breathe belly breathing? So maybe a couple of tips that might be useful to our listeners and viewers.
Yeah, sure. So well, the first thing is to find out which one you are. I mean, we all breathe in a completely unique way, but a very, very quick, simple exercise is to place one hand on the upper chest and one hand on the lower belly, and take a few breaths and just notice which part of the body is rising more. So you can take a nice deep breath in and exhale, and just become aware of where you're breathing. If you're breathing into the upper chest more, maybe take that hand and place it onto the belly, and I always encourage visualization. Visualization can be quite powerful. Imagine the belly sort of expanding on the inhale. If you've got time and space, you can lay on the belly. Can be a really nice way of accessing that belly breath. With children, when they're very, very upset, they go into this upper chest breath. But when you'll find a lot of children mid-tantrum will just sort of throw themselves on the floor and that can act as like a calming down. So they're accessing that parasympathetic nervous state, and by having a little bit of a hard surface on your belly can just help as a guide to act. So just lie on the belly, take a couple of breaths there, head to one side, and just practice really just 5-10 breaths. There's lots of others to try too.
What kind of interactions do you continue to have with things Indian?
In what way? As in
your daily routine, say for instance, are you into Indian food by any chance? Are you into Indian literature, for instance, or do you travel to India often enough?
Oh, not often enough. I mean, I'd love to. I've been a couple of times. I drink chai tea every day. I'm a big fan of chai tea. And I practice yoga or breathwork every day, so I feel connected in some way there. Indian food I love, but pandemic has closed all restaurants, and that hasn't been a thing. But I don't think you can. I always feel like you have to be in India to enjoy Indian food for some reason. You have to kind of have India around you as well.
That's probably true.
It's like the sixth taste, or the sixth sense is kind of what's around you too. So. Yeah, I'd love to.
And this is a studio that you're in right now?
This is a room in my house, yes. We moved in just before lockdown. So yeah, I built it decorated it for clients to come and visit. And then it was completed and then lockdown happened. So I feel like it's a bit of a luxury that I've got it to myself for a few months before I see one-to-one clients again. But it's been quite nice. Yeah, I just need to get a bolt on the door. Bolt on the door for the children.
Before I let you go and attend to your babies, just last one bit. How do you compare the way people in Britain look at a crisis like the pandemic and whatever you know about the way the Americans have been dealing with in terms of just personal reaction to what is going on?
Well, I think we were all quite compliant over here to begin with. I think, and you really don't know what's going on, as in you can read the press, but the press is a sort of snapshot of what's actually going on. So I think it's very, interestingly, I live on the border of England and Wales now. So, and we've all got different laws, rules and regulations and governments here. So the English side is, you must wear masks here, there and everywhere. And the Welsh have not done this so well. So I'm literally on the border, so I can go to my little corner shop and everyone's in mask, and then you go across the border and no one's really wearing a mask. And adopting any sort of safeguarding issues either. So it's kind of, it's mixed here in the UK, and the same in Scotland. I think that Scotland has different things going on. I only read what I read in the press with America, so I'm not quite sure if that's the true representation of what's going on. As I said, it's a snapshot, and I believe there's so much else going on in America as well at the time, with the riots and everything else. So, and it's a global pandemic. We've never experienced anything like this in our lifetime. So I think we're all I think we're doing what we can, definitely. And I think we're all being safe, and as safe as we can be, or safe we should be. But it's a very odd time, and it's very unknown, and it's very difficult to know what to believe sometimes. So we're doing everything we can.
And finally, perhaps an odd question to ask, maybe even a silly one, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Is there a way one can quantify how many times should you breathe in a minute, say, for instance, to feel
In a perfect breath?
Yeah.
Well, there's new research out that it's actually 5.5 breaths per minute. And this comes up in Indian chanting. There's many chants and prayers that encourage this. So when you breathe in and then when you chant, I can't actually name any, but when you chant, then the exhalation is 5.5 seconds, I think, or yeah, it works out as 5.5 breaths per minute. So an easy way of doing that, if you don't chant and you don't pray, is to breathe in for 5 and then breathe out for 5. And this will bring your breath to around six breaths per minute. So this is meant to be the perfect breath, which is probably half as long. It will slow the breath down from a normal rate of 12 breaths per minute, which most of us do, to 6 breaths a minute. And this has so many health benefits.
I see.
Yeah.
But even to me, 12 breaths a minute sounds rather low. So 6 would be, it's almost as if you're still, right?
Try it. See how you feel.
Well, as soon as I finish our conversation, I'm going to give it a shot.
Give it a shot, yeah.
Thank you so much, Aimee. It's been wonderful to talk to you. I greatly appreciate your time, and I'm sorry I disrupted your routine with your kids, but in the process, hopefully our listeners and viewers gained something, and all the best, and look forward to meeting you someday.
Yeah, hopefully. Thanks for your patience with Ava.
No, not at all. It's lovely talking to you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.